So what I'll do now is just pass on to Rod Turner, and Rod will talk to us about what's going on in the partnership space.
Thanks, Greg. So initially, I'll talk a little bit about the highlights post the AOP update that you all got, and some of the key bits are that, as always, we're producing the mid-year performance report, our annual report. All the work that our corporate comms area does continues to go on, and it's a really important part of the business in making sure we communicate effectively with our members. We also participate, a large number of staff in PHA participating on national committees, and a lot of that work is really important because we do have an ability to take on board industry comments, talking to many governments, and we interact at a range of levels within government. So the views PHA can bring to these national committees is quite valued most of the time. The Farm Biosecurity Program continues, and you can see from the slide some of the activities, but the Producer of the Year awards were handed out at the ABARES Outlook Conference recently, and there was recognition of strawberry producers in the Yarra Valley and also the Citrus Canker Program, and I believe Sarah Corcoran's online today, one of the recipients there. And for those of you who know, Mike Ashton also received a Lifetime Award. So we also have our vegetable and grains biosecurity programs. Whoops, I must have clicked two slides. Vegetables and potato farm biosecurity program and the melons biosecurity programs. These programs, as Greg rightly said, are increasing, and we're getting more and more interest from a number of industries to enhance and improve those industry arrangements. Each one is quite unique in that the melon one, we've got a biosecurity officer that's primarily being employed by the melon industry, and Diane Fullylove, who many of you will know, is undertaking that role, and she's working closely with us, but also working closely with the industry itself. So the grains biosecurity surveillance strategy is underway, and Stuart is developing that, and it's part of a series of surveillance strategies that are being developed through the white paper funding from the Department of Agriculture and Water Resources. There are other ones have been citrus and the forestry one, which is more recent. And they're a growing suite of strategies that provide a high-level national approach to how surveillance can operate for a particular industry. And particularly with the forestry and the citrus ones, they've led to funding of people to oversight those strategies, and Sharon Taylor will talk more about those later, but they are quite important national achievements. The Grains Farm Biosecurity Program continues to grow and be enhanced, and you'll see in the bottom comment there was a couple of the staff from that program attended a conference in Berlin, and in recognition of the work of the program, the conference managers offered support for those two people to go to Berlin, and they were fully funded to attend that conference. So it's interesting that Australia is getting recognised internationally. The fruit fly program continues to go and continues to grow, and this slide, there's a lot of activity on it, but in fact, most of the activity was started in this year, and it's going to continue for the next 2 to 3 years, as the National Fruit Fly Council has been refunded to October 2021. And one of the important points of the new funding is there's increased funding in this round of the Council's activity, and there's a significant more funding from the states and territories. So that support from the states and territories is really critical for this program going forward. The fruit fly strategy is being reviewed. As all of you know, the strategy is 4 or 5 years old now, and it's being updated, and when we have the new strategy in a draft form, it will be circulated, and it's envisaged that we'll be running 2 symposiums to discuss the strategy itself and research priorities that fall out of that strategy later in the year once the strategy is endorsed. There's also been work in the Council on the Code of Practice and the ICA reviews, etc. And there's also linkages going to be developed with the DOR white paper or government initiative funding on fruit flies. So DOR are going to employ some regional fruit fly officers, and it's been agreed with the Council that the Council will work closely with those officers going forward. So for the key drivers for next year, I think in the partnership or this partnerships area, most of the activities will continue as they are from this year. So we'll have national committees, member liaison, corporate comms, and the levy programs that PHA runs. But also, Greg's alluded to already, PHA has been awarded a contract from the Department of Agriculture to bring paddle back into Plant Health Australia, and as part of that process, we're working with the Department of Agriculture to bring APPD back into PHA as well. There was, at the recent diagnostic workshop, a workshop on paddle and what the diagnosticians would like paddle to do going forward, and it was quite interesting. Most of them wanted paddle and APPD to be linked together, and they wanted some interactive sites added to paddle, and all of the sorts of things they've asked for are what we had discussed in-house about being the key areas of interest for paddle going forward. So the National Plant Biosecurity Strategy is due for review as well. It's completed next financial year, and we have got funding from the Department of Agriculture and Water Resources to review the diagnostic surveillance sub-strategies under that strategy. And we've also now got some funding to develop a preparedness sub-strategy. So we'll be in touch with all of you in going forward to actually develop the preparedness sub-strategy. And as part of that, we're also going to take the opportunity to refresh and review the National Plant Biosecurity Strategy. One of the things that we're looking for is more of a refresh for that strategy. Will Zachary at one of the board strategy meetings at one stage talked about the fact that the strategy could almost go out to 2050. There was so much in the broad headings, and it's really focusing on what we want to do for the next 5 to 10 years when we revise the strategy. So continuing on, the MOUs for avocados and mangoes will be completed and developed next year, and the Farm Biosecurity website and the program strategy will be enhanced as well next financial year. And the Grains Biosecurity program, you'll see on the slide all of the activities that are planned for the program next year, but there will be a new MOU which EPA initiated, and GPA and Stuart are going to be going around the states and territories and talking to the GBOs, industry and government about how to rework that MOU in the coming future. I think also Greg made mention to the member surveys, and if you look at a couple of the actions that came out of the member surveys, this one shows that we are working towards improved grow-up involvement in terms of biosecurity officers and employing of biosecurity officers in a number of programs. That biosecurity officer numbers are increasing.
Yeah, thanks, Rod. Look, we know that the chat option does work online because just when we were starting, we got a couple of people coming in asking questions about they couldn't hear anything. Hopefully, they can hear something now, which is fine. But I don't think we've received any more questions or text at the moment. So that being the case, we might just move on.